When you get that diagnosis, you feel like you've been dropped in the ocean and you've never had a swimming lesson. You're ill prepared. You're underqualified. You have overwhelmed completely. So you learn fast. We met at work at a casino on the Las Vegas Strip. He was the head of IT and I was in risk management, and I inevitably had a computer problem and he would have to come up to my office to fix it. And at first we didn't quite click, but the more computer problems I had, the more we got to know each other. And it took about 6 months for us to go out on our first date. And after that, we were inseparable. About 2 weeks before we went to the hospital, he told me he was having trouble. He was washing the dishes and he wanted to turn off the faucet. And he thought he was touching the faucet to turn it off, but he was really about 6 inches away. About a week later, he was at the barber. And while in the barber chair, he noticed his left side was starting to get very weak and numb. Monday morning when the doctor's office opened up. So I called her bright and early the second they opened. And I said, I think he's had a stroke, or I think he's having a stroke. And she agreed. And she said, tell him, I said, get to the ER now. Did a CAT scan. And then they came back and said, we want to take you for an MRI. And then they came into the room and said, we see something on your brain we don't like. We think it's a lesion. So the next morning he had surgery. And he said, I think this is benign. I've seen it before, but I'm not certain. It's going for testing. And Jeff went to ICU for a day, and the hospital released him 51 hours after brain surgery, which was too soon. He came home. He started to decline immediately. His blood pressure started to rise. His fever started to rise. And his brother noticed there was blood coming from the back of Jeff's head. So we knew he had to go back, and his left side was gone. After surgery, he had regained some use of it, but at this point, the left side was completely useless. So we called an ambulance and had him transported back. He was home for 4 hours at that point, and he was bleeding in the brain. November 21st, we went back to the neurosurgeon, and he said words that I had never heard before. He said, this is glioblastoma multiforme. If we do nothing, you have 7 months. And if we go with aggressive treatment, you may have 12 to 18 months. And Jeff's immediate words were, how do I fight this? How do I get more time? When can we start radiation? What about chemo? He was ready to fight it immediately. The MRI that was done on May 6th showed there was new tumor growth. And between February 13th and May 6th, the new tumor growth had more than doubled. It went from 6 millimeters to 14 millimeters. And we met with the neurosurgeon, and he said, we know that he knew that it was new tumor growth. The only thing he could do would be another surgery, which he didn't think Jeff would survive. Jeff's oncologist, the neuro-oncologist at the neighboring university, and the radiology oncologist, they all thought it was pseudo-progression and that it would get worse before it got better. Only the neurosurgeon was able to say, no, this is new and this is not going to stop. By the evening of June 11th, he couldn't walk at all. So on June 12th, we called the doctor and we said, it's time. We need to start hospice. We skipped over palliative. It was too late. Jeff cared about everybody around him so much. He had arranged to send me flowers on our anniversary because he knew he wouldn't be here. June 24th is when Jeff passed away. He was surrounded by his children and his dogs and listening to his favorite music. He got to go in his own home, in his comfort zone, on his own terms. He fought this battle hard, but he was only able to fight this battle for 8 months and 3 weeks. Jeff loved being alive. Like anybody, he took it for granted at times, but once you find out your time is limited, that's all he wanted was time. I think his first words would be of encouragement. If you can laugh, laugh. If you need to cry, cry. But fight. A fight like everything depends on it, because it does.